Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you listen, wherever you listen. It's the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast. Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast brought to you by Bet Online. Go to betonline.ag, put promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, get a 50-cent match bonus on your first time signing up. Also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Visit the app or go to underdogfantasy.com. Put in code USCLAV, get a $100 match. That's where you take fantasy to the next level. You could bet over, under. Like, for example, tonight's game 2 is playing. Is he going to get more than 5 touchdowns or less than 5 touchdowns? Just an example. Don't take it too literal. But moving on, we got the tripod here today. We'll start off with the Madman. Madman, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see you guys, as always. Excited to get into a variety of topics. I'm really enjoying this week being kind of the bye week. You know, we can sort of put our feet up a little bit and really have some intellectually stimulating conversation. So always great to see you guys.
Right, how are you doing today?
What's happening? Good. Yeah, if you're taking Tua on underdog, hopefully you went the interception over under, not the touchdowns. Because you have 2 touchdowns already in the first half, or 2 interceptions, excuse me, in the first half. Yeah, great. Happy to be here. Yeah, like Jamal said, it was a little weird having the bye this early, but after such a hot start, it's kind of nice just to kick back and not have to be upset about anything and just roll into Michigan next week.
I'm a little upset, and I think I need to get this off my chest because we put so much effort into this thing, man, and everybody has something negative to say. Like, we don't get paid for it. We just put all of our heart and soul into it. We put so much time into this, and just we never get any positive comments. Like, I'm just so frustrated with it, and I'm tired of it, and I'm sick of it, and over again, like. I thought we had fans. I thought we were supportive. We bring Jay on, we bring Nico on, and everybody always has negative stuff to say. Like, I'm just so tired of it, and I'm just ridiculous. You know what, you guys? I'm over this. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and take this. I'm done with Salute to Troy. Like, I just can't deal with this anymore. Like, I'm dealing with the stress and other stuff. I'm done.
All right.
Okay. All right. I wasn't exactly taking him seriously. And, I guess it's just going to be you and me, to sort of top this off.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. It's like, Coach, have a mimosa and relax. Oh, man.
Yeah. That's why you don't read the comments, I guess.
That's why you don't read the comments. I think, at first I thought he was sort of imitating Brian Kelly, because it sounded a lot like the Brian Kelly post game. It's like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired of the same thing all the time. What's going on here? What's happening here?
Guys, I apologize. I resurrected. You could call me the
Pac-12.
You could call me the Pac-12. I'm back, guys. I'm back like the Pac-12.
That was a skit. That was a thing. That was
a whole skit, guys. It was a whole skit.
It was good though. I'm telling you that the education, paid off there, Coach, because very, very, very believable.
George Lucas School of Film,
the acting school. Come on now, the film school. It feels that way.
I went over to visit George a couple of times.
There you go.
But if you guys didn't know what we did there, that was the resurrection of the Pac-12 the Pac-12 conference. They're back. Go ahead, Ryan. What are you going to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I was just feeding into it. So yeah, they're back at literally the midnight hour last night. Now they're back.
The Pac-12 has come back.
I'm so happy for Oregon State and Washington State. I got to say, they stuck to their guns. They were the last 2 left. They sued for all the assets and the rights to all the imagery. They said we're going to find a way. We're going to stick together. And man, you gotta be just rooting for those 2 teams to stick it out. And now they're rebuilding a conference again. And I'm going to make a hot take, guys. Oregon State upsets Oregon this weekend. That's my take.
It's possible, but so
that would be fantastic.
Piggybacking off of you, Jamal, it's the crazy thing because they got $255 million, and they're sitting on a pot of money. Here's a bunch of things that the Pac-12 has in their favor. They're sitting on a bunch of money, not a bunch, but they're sitting on a good sum of money. They're the only conference up next year for a media deal, right? So they could have their pick. They could get a lot of money for Pac-12 After Dark because that's most likely one of the most entertaining spots, right? When you watched college football last night, after that main game, which came on 4:30 out here, there wasn't really anything on. There was SC came on at 8, but like it wasn't like it used to be when there was just you could go to any network and all the games are on late at night, like so they could take advantage of that. The only thing they kind of lowered their standards, right? And I'm going to give you guys a little story.
I had to.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you guys a story. And then I'll go to you, Ryan. So when I was getting recruited, I was really close to going to Fresno State. And Pat Hill was the head coach at that time. And
any place, anytime, anywhere. Remember, that was the slogan.
Any place, anytime, anywhere. And so Pat Hill, the weekend we came, these are like all the top recruits. These are all his top guys that he really wanted. And he had the president and the athletic director there on the visit. And they legit was telling us, like, we're in serious talks with the Pac-10. It's us in another school. We can't tell anybody, like, we're in serious talks with the Pac-10. And I'm like, I'm telling Pat Hill, I'm like, I wouldn't mind coming here and establishing Fresno State at the Pac-10. Like, I wouldn't mind doing that. Like, I could be a name here for the rest of my life. Like, you know, like I'm feeding into these things. And then we know it didn't work. And one of the reasons why it didn't work is because Fresno State doesn't have a PhD program. And that was like one of the requirements to be in the Pac-12. Like, you have to have a doctoral school. So it didn't work. And I was like, I might as well go to the Pac-10. Like, you know what I mean? It turned into that. But I'm just like, now it's actually happened. I'm pretty sure Pat Hill is excited that it's happening, but I was really close to going to Fresno State and being in the Pac-10 and trying to uplift the Bulldogs and having some type of Pac-10 dominance. Ryan, what do you have about this? This is crazy, though. They're back. They survived from the dead.
I mean, first of all, had you actually been to Fresno while you were mulling over that decision?
I took a visit and everything.
Ryan, so cheeky this evening. I love it. It's so low-key cheek.
I just, no disrespect to the Central Valley. My 3 best friends from college are all from the Central Valley of Visalia, Bakersfield, Fresno. So, but it's just not a place I would ever want to spend more than a weekend at, maybe. But anyway.
When you're 18, Ryan, in a small town, and you're kind of like the pro team, and you're
I get that
out there, it's a little bit different.
And you could be the dude.
Yeah,
you could be the dude. And they have a great little sandwich barbecue place right across from campus called it's like Firehouse Grill or something. Fantastic. But anyway,
Bulldog.
Maybe it's Bulldog Grill. That would make sense. But no, they survived. It's sad because, like, why didn't this happen back before everyone left? Like when USC, even after Larry Scott, just last year, when USC and UCLA left, which we all believe was the right decision, and we're seeing it this year, I think it was the right decision. But they still had 10 teams. They still had Oregon. They still had Washington. Like, if they would have done this then and brought San Diego State and Fresno or all 4 of these teams, like, they would have been a pretty strong conference still. You lose, obviously, the 2 LA schools, but played really coy and like, no, we're good with the 10 and this. And then all of a sudden, you know, the other 8 end up leaving and they're down to 2. And so it's just unfortunate that they mismanaged it so poorly with that. And now, you know, there's what, 6 teams. They got to get 2 more to be a Power 5. And again, I have no idea what the contracts are. I haven't looked into it, but I wouldn't be shocked if some way, somehow Stanford and Cal are back in 26 to complete the conference alongside potentially Nevada and UNLV, which I think we were talking about Coach Rowe earlier, to make it basically back to a 10-team conference. So, it'd be fun to see. It's obviously again, it sounds disrespectful, but it's going to be a much lesser conference than the Big 10 and the SEC and even the Big 12. And if the ACC survives, but they can be Power 5. It's West Coast football back. There's some history there. It's essentially the Mountain West because, again, maybe I am cheeky tonight, Jamal. I don't know, but no disrespect, but Washington State and Oregon State were basically Mountain West schools anyway, for being honest. And now they add 4 more Mountain West schools. So it's basically the Mountain West. But hey, hats off to them for, I guess, somehow banding together.
If you're UNLV and Nevada in this situation, right? And you know the conference is sitting there saying, well, we're going to wait for Cal and Stanford and see what they're going to do. But if they don't come in the conference, you guys have a spot at the table. How do you feel as those universities? Like, do you just pin them over the table? Like, all right, we want the best conference and the best contract and the best TV rights out of everybody because you guys absolutely need us. Like, they're the ones that hold the cards right now. And they're the ones that hold the deals because we don't know what's going to happen with the ACC. We have an idea, but we don't know what's actually going to happen. So if that doesn't work, and then Nevada and UNLV comes in, like, you need us. Like, so here's what we want. Take it or leave it. Do you think that's possible for that to happen?
Well, and sorry, real quick, Jamal. At this point, and then you can actually answer that question, but I don't understand why it wouldn't just be a full merger between the Mountain West and the Pac-12. Like the Mountain West essentially lost their, I wouldn't say 4 best. Boise is probably like their best, at least in terms of output, but San Diego State, Fresno, Colorado State, those are all pretty premier within the Mountain West. So at this point, I don't know why I don't just do a full merger, but go ahead, Jamal.
No, I think all great points, Ryan. I think, Coach, there's a little bit of kind of cat and mouse going on here as well moving forward. First of all, it's just very exciting that Washington State and Oregon State have a conference here again. I think Nevada, UNLV, what is their alternative now becomes the question, right? So when you talk about leverage, you have to be able to have kind of an alternative path that you're willing to go down. And I don't think UNLV and Nevada have an alternative path that is nearly as good as what would be joining this iteration of the Pac-12 would be. So I think for that reason, they're kind of waiting, because here, guess what? If you get that Power 5 status and if you win the conference, look, there's a path to the playoff here.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's a huge chip that, that's a domino that's in a very significant way. I have a very interesting perspective on this. And I know this is the USC show. If I was UCLA, I'd consider going back to the Pac-12. If I was UCLA, I would think about maybe calling up Cal, and UCLA and Cal go back to the Pac-12. And you bring on Nevada, UNLV, you explore the opportunity to bring on a Gonzaga in the Pac-12 just for basketball. And now you're in a situation where I think if you look at it from kind of a Cal and UCLA perspective, 2 schools, obviously very decorated academically in California, UCLA decorated basketball program. But there's sort of a question right now of how much they're willing to pay in NIL for football, right? We've sort of talked about this over the course of the offseason. And so there's 2 options, right? You sort of have to either invest more if you want to kind of get to sort of a perennial top 15, top 20 team in this new world, or you find a way to sort of have a more frictionless path into the playoff. And I'm kind of thinking from both a Cal and a UCLA value proposition perspective. If you're UCLA, you say, hey, you can be in the Pac-12. It's a clearer path to the playoff. You have less travel. There's all of these things that sort of put you in a differentiated spot from USC in terms of sort of the value proposition that you're going after. And before everyone kind of scoffs at that, think about what Boise State was in football at the end of the last decade in a lesser conference. They were a national brand, even though they were in a lesser conference, because winning sort of brings that forward. Think about what Memphis basketball was with John Calipari, lesser conference, but a national brand. So I think there's a kind of a unique opportunity here where if you're Cal, if you're UCLA, maybe, obviously it's so early, you're there. There's sort of a revenue piece, but I would think about it. I know we had sort of talked about this holistically on the network, that when USC had decided to go to the Big Ten and UCLA was obviously part of that deal, there was a lot of conversation. Should UCLA maybe back out and stay in the Pac-12 to kind of create a unique value proposition for themselves from a football program perspective? And if you can pull in a Gonzaga, UCLA, and basketball in the Pac-12 would be this huge rivalry that would be great for both programs, set them both up for success going into March Madness. So, and obviously all that Calimony stuff going on between UCLA and Cal, you sort of call them both up together, you come back to the same conference. There's a lot of possibility. I know they just got there into their respective conferences, but this world of college football is so transactional right now that I would think about it if I was Cal and UCLA. And, you bring back Stanford, you bring in a Gonzaga, you bring in UNLV and Nevada. Now you're back to 12. You're actually the Pac-12 again. And it kind of makes a lot of sense for a lot of those programs.
Was you about to say something, Ryan?
Holistically, it makes so much sense. I think just again, talking strictly football, that makes a ton of sense. And USC and UCLA would still play every year. It's a rivalry. It's not going anywhere. They would play every year at a conference if they had to. And so I don't think that, even if USC Notre Dame, like the talk is that's at risk, I don't think USC UCLA would ever go anywhere. There's no way. It's too localized and everything. So that wouldn't be an issue. The thing that wouldn't it probably happen is, even though that makes so much sense, because UCLA was with USC on the initial deal, they're not going to get $100 million on any other network deal that the Pac-12 strikes up with these lesser teams. So it'd be real hard to back out and turn away the $100 million that they're getting with being with the Big Ten, which is, 40 or whatever million more than Oregon and Washington are getting. So that'd be the one thing. But like you said, Jamal, just all the other things you said, that would make a ton of sense for them.
No, right. No, and it's a great point on the money. And I'm just, we're sort of brainstorming here a little bit. I would actually, if I was the Pac-12, I would go back to that Apple TV subscription deal.
Yeah.
And so again, you're not going to be able to get the 100 million, but if you can get a fraction of that as a conference and kind of have this clearer path to the playoff, and that opens up other partnerships and endorsement opportunities. Obviously there's a lot of conversation around how much money is going into travel, how much money is going into supporting like the academics, going cross country and all of those things. So how much net are you actually gaining? You're still sort of behind in terms of the money, but the winning that'll come with that and get additional revenue streams, it would be worth doing kind of an analysis to see, what the art of the possible there was. Now, again, for a school like UCLA, second most NCAA championships and all these other sports, right? So, sort of from a holistic standpoint, it would be challenging, but why can't they be like Notre Dame in these other sports, right? I mean, you still have the recruiting pipeline. You still have kind of the pedigree and in the water polos and the volleyballs and all of those things. Why can't you just be Notre Dame in these other sports? So I wonder, is there a path here with an Apple TV subscription deal to really juice the Pac-12 back up, and those teams then have primetime slots on their own that builds exposure and a path to a playoff berth?
Did SC and UCLA get $100 million from the deal, or the Big Ten deal was $100 million?
No, each school.
Million. So each school got $100 million. So I can see $100 million deal being. I can see more than $100 million, right? So think about it like this: ESPN pays them $50 million for a number of years to get that late night spot. Fox pays them $50 million. There's your $100 million for the conference, and then you get a big deal from Apple TV. So it has to be pieced together to get a big contract. But I mean, I can see it being done. But the craziest part about all this, by the time the next Olympics rolls around, there won't even be any conferences. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think by that time, and we have like 4 or 5 years of just conferences left, and then the Blue Bloods are just going to break off, and then we're going to be having this conversation all again. That's just my prediction. I just don't know. You guys got anything else on this? Of the reemergence of the Pacific? So, do you think they'll get the Pacific Life Insurance sponsor again? Do you think the whale will come back for them?
They still need life insurance. They're still barely breathing. So
yeah, they're barely.
So.
You know what? It feels much better to be a group of 6 than a group of 2. So I'm just very happy for both Washington State and Oregon State. It's sort of the entrepreneurial journey too, where it's like, you're on your last leg, you're about to be eviscerated. You stick to your guns, you hang in there. There's still more to go. But man, if it comes back to be a full-on 8+ team conference, kudos to Washington State and Oregon State. And I think we're all kind of rooting for them to succeed this year, both on the field and off the field. And I'm telling you, with all the juju, I got Oregon State winning the Civil War on Saturday.
It's funny that the ACC is on life support, almost dead. And then the Pac, everybody thought the Pac-12 was dead. Flatline, they pulled the plug. They was like, wait, he's still breathing. And then he just pops up like the Undertaker.
And watch it reverse. Like Cal and Stanford are in the ACC, which feels so weird. They go back to the Pac, and then watch like Clemson and Miami join the Pac-12 or something like something wild like that. Last thing I'll say, and let's move on, and we'll do more SC talk. But not to be like a downer, but there's no way with these teams, coach, that anything is going to be close to $100 million per school. That the Apple deal that was on life support when there was still the 10 was $23 million a year, almost $70 million less.
But if you go by incentives, right? Like the base was 23, but then it was sort of how many subscriptions you can actually get. And think about like the number of Apple TV subscriptions that like Stanford alums, UCLA alums, Berkeley alums, would sort of pay to up it, because I think there's a membership thing. And I think the other thing that has been proven with college football is we're all degenerates. We just all want more college football. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of casual fans that would pay an Apple TV subscription just to watch more, like 4 more hours of football on a Saturday and just have your Saturday stretch out. So I think, it was a very incentive-laden plan. The base, totally agree with you, was much lower. But there was like a long tail in terms of incentives. It would definitely be a bold move. But if I was the AD at UCLA, I would really consider it. You get the weekenders back, the travel's easy, clear path to the playoff. There's all this value proposition that sort of differentiates from, and you get to play it. The Victory Bell would just be in September instead of December. And it would be a ton of fun.
Speaking of being a degenerate, I'll give you a degenerate story. I was watching, I was legit. So like I wake up early anyway. So as soon as I wake up like 6 o'clock. I turn on College Game Day, and the rest of my day is college football. And then like I'm watching a commercial, and there's like a quad box for Dish TV. And I'm like, why don't I have that? I legit called Dish and was like, I need to upgrade my box. I want the quad box. It's an extra $50. I don't care. Give me the quad box. I need it installed.
Right? So how many coach rows are there for that Apple TV subscription? I'm telling you, baby.
Yeah, on week 1, I hit a 7-team parlay. Week 1. I'm BetOnline.ag, of course. And the last game that I hit was Northern Colorado against Incarnate Ward. So that'll give you a glimpse into my degenerate part.
Incarnate Word, San Antonio, Texas. Deuce Dime, what up?
So that's 2 things we just learned about the great Ryan Dyrud. One is he would absolutely pay for an Apple TV subscription if that opportunity presented itself. And B, we might need an intervention because he might be having a problem.
The only bummer about that and why it's not a problem is that bet I put $3 on, which is unfortunate because had I put like 20, would have been a couple grand in my pocket.
Yeah. Oh man, I love
That's how they get you because you can only bet $1, and you be like, I just lost $1. And when it adds up, like I've gambled $500 this year. Like, how did I do that? Because you played 6 $1 parlays in one day, and that adds up. Like
so last story I'll say, and it ties to USC in some way, and then we'll get off of it. My buddy from undergrad, USC grad, one of my college buddies from SC. 3 years ago, March Madness, 14-team parlay in the first round. He did a bet. The first 13 games hit. All that needed to happen was Abilene Christian needed to lose straight up to Texas. It was a 3-14 game. And Abilene Christian, there was a 47% free throw shooter with 3 seconds to go, got fouled. They were down 1. He steps up and nails both free throws. And Abilene Christian wins 53-52.
I remember that year. And then the following year.
14-team parlay,
So
I remember that.
On that would just be absolutely devastating.
It's always the last leg.
Always the last one.
Well, welcome.
Huge upset.
Yeah.
That's a gimme game. That's one of the ones you just check as like, that's one of my easy ones.
Exactly.
Well, welcome back, Pac-12. Hopefully we see you guys in the Power 5. But until then, enjoy your time down there. Let's move on to USC football. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Ring the bell. We got a big recruit. The back signal went out quick. And then we immediately got the recruit. I'm going to butcher this.
We practice so much.
Viliami Maiola. Is that close?
I think that's pretty good.
Viliami Moala. Yep, absolutely.
That's pretty good, Coach.
Yeah.
I hung out with some Ooses in high school. Long Beach probably were full of them, and SC. You know what I mean? I've been around a couple Ooses. Birmingham High School out of Salt Lake City, Utah. This dude's a hoss. 6'3", 305. I'm looking at his pictures. He doesn't look 305. And the picture that they posted on Twitter with his mom, he doesn't look 305. Watch this film. He doesn't move like 305. This dude is legit. I need to figure out who's doing the rankings because they got this guy. I don't know how 24/7 does it, but it says player ranking 3-star, 24/7 sports composite. He's a 4-star.
So they combine all the rankings, like On3, 247, ESPN, and combined everyone averages out as a 4-star. So 247 has him ranked lower than other sites, but composite is a 4-star.
Yeah, 247 is tripping because this dude is legit. This dude's legit. This dude is what we want Bear Alexander to be. You know what I mean? A pop, twitchy, big man, like big Vince Wilfork. This dude is legit. He can run well. He's going to be a very big impact on the defense. The only thing that scares me is that he's a 2026 recruiter. You know how I feel about guys who commit before the 4th of July. As Jamal would say, I hold all my roses till the end. So, but I can't say this. Being around the Polynesian culture through high school and college, I do know that these are very loyal people and they stick to their word. So that takes a little concern off. This is a great ad for the defense. This is going to be a very good defense lineman. This dude has a ton of potential. This dude has a very low floor and a very high ceiling, and he's going to take the elevator all the way up to that ceiling if everything goes right. Doesn't look 305. This dude's going to get to about 315, and he's going to be chiseled. He's going to look like Cedric Ellis, guaranteed. Just a big man in the and dominate the center. Great ad. Anytime you got a dude who demands a double team and takes the pressure off the linebackers, your linebackers just eat up the whole time. I love it. Hopefully it sticks true. We got to wait 2 football seasons, unfortunately, because recruiting is so different from when I was getting recruited. But I love it. And Big Sean Nua gets the credit for this one this time. Sean Nua's out there getting big recruits now. He has to keep up with Coach Hitty. So Sean Nua got this recruit. I'll pass it on to Ryan. What do you got to say about this big-time commitment?
Yeah, big time. You said all the stuff about the athlete. Great athlete, big-time prospect out of Utah. I think we haven't seen it as much late, but it's so important for USC to have like a Polynesian connection. I think there's so much history there. Obviously, great football players, and so to have that connection and to keep that as something in the SoCal. I know he's from Utah, but just within Southern California, I think is super important for this program moving forward. So great to see that as a get. And, like you said, it's 26. Things can change. He did say he's shutting down his recruitment. He's not taking any more visits. We'll see how long that holds true. But there's 25 kids right now that haven't officially shut down their recruitment. So the fact that he said that, I think, is meaningful. You mentioned the kind of loyalty there. So, I don't need to add too much more. I think it's a great get, and I think there's more coming. This was a huge recruiting weekend, the home game against Utah State. Obviously, we talked about Tahj Jackson, who committed right after. This commitment came right after, and I believe there's 1 or 2 more kind of on the way that just haven't been announced yet. So really good recruiting weekend. The last thing I'll just say overall is, we talked a lot through the summer, especially in June when they lost, the big names of Terry and Gibson and Stubbs, that, not to downplay, those were absolute losses. But once this team started playing, if they took care of business on the field, the recruiting would take care of itself. We knew NIL had to get better. It seemingly has gotten better, but based on the coaching staff, as long as they started taking care of business on the field and improving the concepts that they were talking about, because we kind of joked about it, but we likened it to, Apple before the iMac, that Apple was a company that was almost bankrupt. And then we're trying to sell this new product of like, hey, we're coming back. But until the iMac was on the market and everyone was like, oh crap, this is like a great product, there was a lot of doubt there. And so now that people have seen this Trojans defense in just 2 weeks, but have seen a product that is truly elevated and truly developing talent and taking, 3-star guys, and Nate Clifton, originally 3-star, was a 4-star transfer, and Meyer, drawn a blank, from Wyoming. Gavin Meyer, thank you. Taking him, and he's played fantastic in the middle there after being a spring transfer. So they're seeing the concept play out on the field, and I think that's what's helping with recruiting. We've seen a great couple weeks, and it'll just continue to build on as long as they take care of business on the field. So great get with this, as you mentioned, Coach. Huge, but doesn't look huge in terms of too big. But he's definitely a big human being, and will only get bigger as a sophomore right now, or a junior right now? Impressive.
Man, what you got?
No, I mean, I think you guys both kind of covered all of it. The one thing I'll add is this is usually a guy that, when you look at his archetype from Utah, Polynesian, 6'2", 305. Over the last 8, 10, 12 years, this was a guy that Utah would get.
Yeah.
And, when you talk about sort of in the trenches and playing that bully ball, and I think that's what is so significant here is that this is now a player, this type of archetype that now wants to come to USC. Because over the last decade, you could argue we were much lighter in the trenches than Utah and some other kind of more physical teams in the Pac-12, even trailing the days, kind of the end of the Harbaugh, era at Stanford. And so I think that to me is sort of the big significant piece. Ryan talked about it, the momentum, I think, from the home opener. Look, there was just a lot of energy in that home opener that felt different than the last several years. Number one, I mean, having 70,000 strong for a home opener, 8 p.m., it was 102 degrees, not necessarily a marquee opponent, but still lights coming out. At 70,000 strong. In years past, that number would probably be about 50 to 55. So there was kind of an electricity and a buzz in the air. Then you sort of combine that with the fact that you had Aaron Donald and Dwayne Wade and others sort of add on to that to really provide some juice in the building. And then you add on to that, this is the first shutout in 13 years that this offense had, and just how excited they were, when that field goal was missed late in the game to sort of preserve that shutout, how excited they were. So it's not coincidental here that the first two commits after this weekend were on the defensive side of the ball, and guys that you wouldn't necessarily think about would always pick USC over the past decade. A guy like Ty Jackson historically would go to a Texas. Yep. A guy like Moala historically over the last 10, 12 years would go to a Utah. So the fact now that USC is bringing those guys in, those types of athletes that we had in the mid-2000s of the heyday, that to me is what's so significant. And again, 2026 is a long way off. I sort of believe him in terms of what he says for all the reasons you guys described, the background, the values, etc. But the best way, and we'll say it again, to have a strong recruiting pipeline is to win and execute on your current roster, on your current schedule. It's sort of Ryan, you kind of making a corporate reference there. I'll compliment that, add on to it. The best way for companies, coach, and this, to sort of have business development, win new business, is execute on your existing contracts.
Yep.
Show you can deliver value on your existing contracts, and then the business development flows. And that's really what SC needs to be focusing on. The more they win, the more they look good doing it, the more they become a perennial power once again. The recruiting, I don't want to say takes care of itself, but it definitely, starts becoming a tailwind as opposed to a headwind. So very exciting for a lot of reasons.
I keep you more excited, Jamal. There's crystal ball predictions coming out for a 2026 guy, and he's from SC's backyard and one of the top O linemen in Southern California. He goes to Orange Lutheran right now. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to jinx it. You know what I'm talking about, Ryan? You've been seeing that? Yeah. Yep. So, this is only the second out-of-state kid for 2026, and I think the majority of them are California. So the backyard's starting to be recruiting a little bit. I think we're going to see a little bit more.
Trojan wall, baby. The T-wall.
So they're listening to you. So this is great, man. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited.
Real quick, on super fast and then continue. But how cool is it that Orange Lutheran is finally a good program again? They're the number 3 team in California right now.
I hate it. I don't want to see it. I only want to see one. I only want to see one program get good again. It's going to be so hard, man. It's going to be so hard. But it is what it is. But no, it is good for them because you get a good product. I do like the fact that these schools are going to the football states and playing the talent and beating them wholeheartedly, and they always come up with excuses. Well, you got all the best talent in one school. It's 3 schools now, so I don't know how you get all the best talent. Neither here nor there. But I will say something funny. I sent it to you guys, and it's funny how I don't know over what period of games, but the Pac-12 is 21-2 against SEC schools. That's kind of funny too. I meant to bring that up earlier. I just clicked to me right now. I
think that's overall this season. Not just
how's it 21? They haven't played 21 games. There's only 12 schools. How are they 21-2?
They played two games.
Two non-conference games.
12 times 2 is 24.
I'm lost. Doesn't make sense. But okay. Explain it to me later.
They've each played two games,
like
right?
For instance, Coach, like let's say, SC played LSU. Let's say SC had another, instead of Utah State, they played Mississippi State, right? And so then that's 2 games for SC against the SEC. And then, you apply that to UCLA, you apply that to Stanford, Cal, et cetera, et cetera.
I misinterpret that. I thought it was like actual old Pac-12 schools versus actual SEC schools, and that was the record.
Well, you might be right, but I think it was literally just, if we're looking at the same thing, I think it was the former Pac-12 schools right now are 21-2 this season. Like Colorado has a loss against Nebraska, and Stanford has a loss against TCU. Other than that, every team's undefeated.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I think that's what it was. I think.
That sounds right. Right. Yeah.
That makes sense because it's 21 games. I thought it was over the past 2 years, but that definitely sounds right.
Either way, it's a good stat. But
yeah, it is, especially against the SEC. But we'll keep moving forward. So I'm gonna pass it to you, Ryan. Let's end it. This is kind of a weird story, and I don't know the depths and the details of it, but it looks like this kid is coming here. Well, we're hot on his tail, and he's very interested in coming here, but he has a weird background story to it. So I'll let you explain all the details, and then we'll comment on it. The floor is yours.
I'm assuming you're referring to Jahkeem Stewart?
Yeah, Jahkeem Stewart, yeah.
Okay. So, interesting situation right now, and the fact that high school transferred, the thought was he was transferring to IMG Academy, decided to stay in state and transfer to Edna Carr, which is Coach Henny's former high school, ironically enough. Because he's transferring as high school and because of their rules there, he, as far as I know, will have to sit out this year. So will not be playing this year. And there's rumors, nothing confirmed, but there's rumors that he may reclassify to the 25 class. So essentially would sit out football this year, enroll at the college that he ends up committing to in the spring, and go on from there. As of now, a lot of the recruiting sites kind of have LSU still as the front runner. I think Georgia's in there, Ohio State, all the normal big players are in there, but USC is certainly in there. They're given, I think on 3, they're at like a 1.5% chance, but Coach Henny has been pushing hard for this guy. Obviously they have a connection already. The fact that he's now going to Coach Henny's former high school is kind of strange. And not that social media means anything, but if you go to this kid's Twitter, it is all SC. All his tweets are SC. So we don't know for sure, but it's a really interesting, just the fact that he's transferring. He can't play. He might reclassify. If he doesn't reclassify, he sits this year, plays his senior year, and then goes in 26. But it's just kind of an interesting. I'm trying to look more into it. I'm gonna try to get a piece up on LF Network tomorrow or Saturday if any more details I can get. But definitely something to watch. And obviously, if SC gets him, as of now, he's the number 1 2026 prospect. So I don't know where he would necessarily land within the 25 class, but would certainly be a great get if SC can get him. So, but yeah, interesting. I don't know what your thoughts on it are, Jamal, because it's just really a interesting storyline.
Yeah, it's this very, non-linear sort of path here. And obviously, number 1 for Stewart, so much talent, so much, possibility. I got to be honest with you. I worry, and Coach, we've sort of had topics like this over the course of the offseason. I really wonder who's kind of guiding him, because this is some concerning behavior, I'll be honest with you. I think that it would be a catastrophic mistake for him to sit out this year. I just think that development at this age is so important, and there's nothing else that is even close to a substitute for actually playing on the field, that I think it would really hurt his development almost to a point of no return. I mean, in terms of his potential. Look, we saw this many years ago, right, with Mike Will. We saw this many years ago with Maurice Clarett. You never get back to that level, especially and those guys were, a year, 2 years into college. Here we're talking about a high school kid. Just the development is so important. I know it's kind of different things, but remember all the talk during COVID about, kids and and how difficult their development was year over year by, not going to class in person and all the online stuff. And, they're still kind of recovering from that. I feel like it's a very similar principle here, even though it may not be sort of cognitive related and it's physical related. I just think it would be really problematic if he sat out, and so hopefully he's making decisions that are in his best interest, and he's being guided in the most appropriate way. And I'll be honest with you, the other piece of this that's a little bit of a red flag, and we sort of talked about it in the offseason, is this sort of hopping around. Look, we saw that with Bear in the offseason. And let's be honest here, guys, if we were giving an assessment of, it's early, but most disappointing player on this USC team in 2024, I would have to begin the list with Bear Alexander. And so, the fact when you're sort of always kind of hopping around looking for, shortcuts or angles to be able to sort of maximize, I think sometimes that sort of backfires in terms of your preparation, your focus, just sort of clarity of thought. You want life to kind of be simple at this age as much as you can, and kind of focus on ball and just be the best that you can be. So I think it's just the whole tactic is a bit of a red flag. And the fact that if he sits out, I think developmentally, it would be a huge error. So for his sake, obviously we want all these great players to come to USC, but just for his sake, no matter where he ends up, I really hope he's being guided in the most appropriate way. And I hope he doesn't become a cautionary tale of what could go wrong in this sort of NIL transfer portal reclassification era. So this kid's so talented, number one prospect in 26. Let's hope he has an opportunity to reach his potential.
The only word, and actually, Jamal, we're seeing it in modern day. Deshaun Watson had a year off, and he hasn't been the same since he took his year off. You know what I mean? We saw with Le'Veon Bell when he did the holdout. Only player who was able to come back and be somewhat of an impact, and it was because he was just a generational talent, and that was Michael Vick. He's the only one that took those years off and came back and he wasn't the same person he was, but he was still a lot better than everybody else. So that's the only thing that worries me, is that he has to sit out a year. Now, the questions that I would ask is, why did you transfer? And then was it worth it to transfer? And is it because of competing? And all the deep core questions you have to ask as far as recruiting, and is it worth it? I can't say he's chasing a bag right now, because I don't know if they have the NIL in Louisiana. I know they have it here in California, but I don't know if they have it in Louisiana.
He only moved within the same city. So he was at St. Augustine, New Orleans, and now he's at Edna Carr, New Orleans. So it didn't even affect that, because it's just within miles of movement.
Yeah,
it's really just strange. Yeah,
there's so many questions that are out, and I don't know the questions. But if I'm recruiting him, I'm asking the questions. And then the follow-up questions is, are we going to have the same situation here? Because I'm not going to put all this effort into getting you here, and then next thing you know, you bounce in the spring when things don't go your way. It's interesting because he's been there for 3 years, and now all of a sudden he just decides, 2 years.
2 years.
And then he just decides to leave. So I don't know. And it could be a situation where people are in your corner to give you bad advice and trying to put you in the best situation, but you're already in a good situation. You're the top player in the nation. So there's so many open-ended questions and so many loose ends to tie up that you have to ask the hard questions that's going to make you feel uncomfortable because now it's a legit investment. Before I make this legit investment in you, because you're not going to get the money back. You know what I mean? So until they start to regulate it. So it's a good guy to go get athletic and talent wise, but mentally, sometimes you got to get, and SC's not there yet, but eventually, and hopefully SC gets there to where it's worth passing up this guy, because we could go get another one. So we need, by that time, if he doesn't reclassify, hopefully we're at the spots where we could find another one. There's 4 of them on our board. Like, we could pass on this guy because we don't like the pass, but I'm hoping that the pass is valid reason, so he does get a chance to be a Trojan. He sits around and ends up being a Trojan for the full 3 to 4 years. You guys got anything else on that one?
Let me ask you this, Coach. As a coach, so based on On3's reporting, he will be ineligible this year. So based on that, unless something changes, he will not be playing this season. And they're already a couple games into the season anyway. So if you're a coach, whether it's his coach or just someone giving him advice, do you tell him you should come back for your senior year in high school and develop in high school after a year off? Or should you jump right away to a college program that you think can develop you? Plus, you'll get NIL money, but let's just keep this football related. Like, what do you think would be with a year off? Is it better to make that year up in high school or just jump immediately and make that year up in college and basically have a redshirt year, freshman year of college?
Make that year up in high school because there's no shape like game shape. We can run all the sprints we can run all the gassles we can run all the Mach 40, we can run all the Mach 40s, we can run all the simulated games, but there's no game like game shape. And you don't get into game shape until like the third or fourth game. If you pay attention, like this week, if you paid attention the first 2 weeks, you kind of look like, man, that dude's tired. He's not tired. He's just playing at a super high level that he hasn't played on in almost a year. And you just have to get back into that shape. You won't see that later on down the line. Sitting out for that long and not seeing it, not experiencing it, not getting beat up a little bit, not getting that hurt, not being able to work on your craft. As much as people say football is like golf, if you don't do it for a while, you kind of lose it and you got to kind of like get it back. So I would tell him to go back and graduate in 2026 just so he could have a year playing football, a year just getting beat up. And like, to me, that is a higher risk of injury than playing a year. And I know, like, you're like, well, it doesn't really make sense. You're not doing anything. You're stagnant. And all of a sudden you're coming back and now you're playing with dudes who are 20 years old and you're only 18, 22 years old and you're getting hit at a higher level. And that could cause some injury. It's more the physical aspect of being in shape and the lifting and all that. Like, you're not doing all that at a high level and you stand away from it for a year is not a good position to be.
Yeah.
So go back.
Jamal, you have thoughts on that?
No, I'm with Coach. I just think that the jump, I mean, there's sort of two jumps implied there, right, Ryan? If you're going straight from a year off to college, you got to go from non-game shape to game shape, and then you got to go from high school to college. I just think that's just such a gigantic step forward in such a short period of time. And then you got to deal with other elements, right? I mean, there's such a structure in high school. You have to go to class at a certain time. School ends at a certain time. And then you sort of walk into a situation in college where you sort of control your schedule. It's optional. You're in a dorm environment. You're in a campus environment. All these pretty co-eds around. Like, I just think there's such a change of having to deal with being on the field as well as off the field that it's very, very problematic. I think it only works in very, very exceptional cases if you've sort of demonstrated significant maturity at that age. And you would argue it's some immature behavior with all of these transactions taking place to even be in this situation in the first place. I would say, the advice I would give is get back on the field like today. Like, if you got to switch schools back, look, at the end of the day, this has only been a couple of weeks. Get on the field for game 3. But don't sit out this year. This could be really catastrophic. But short of that, definitely come back and try and recover this in high school before you move forward.
Yeah. So I agree with you both. So just to play the devil's advocate or the other side, because I think, to sit out a year and whatnot is just, you got to get those game reps. But to play the devil's advocate side, if you're a top prospect, he's the number 1 prospect. But even if you're a top 50 prospect, most of these guys' plan, most of them is to do their 3 years and get to the NFL. So if you're thinking about it that way, he could be thinking, all right, I'm still going to be working out. I can still practice with the team. I'm just ineligible to play. We agree that's not the same, but thinking that way, still practicing, still working out, sit these few months out, and we'll just assume he's going to USC, which he hasn't committed. We'll just assume. Is it better for me to sit out and then go play for these high school coaches, or sit out, I'm taking a full redshirt year, my freshman year, and I'm getting developed by the best defensive line coach in football with Coach Henderson and Coach Henne, and I'm just practicing, just getting developed, and then I have my 2 years of actual playing, and then I'm in the NFL.
No, because now you're out for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You haven't played real ball for 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
But Miller Moss didn't play real ball for 4. And he's now projected to be a first-round pick.
Touche.
Again, I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's the argument.
That's a really fair argument. But I also think, Ryan, in that particular case, it's the quarterback position is a more cerebral position. And so you actually get a lot of benefit from seeing the game from different perspectives, seeing it from the sideline, seeing it kind of off the field. Whereas I think defensive line, there's really no perspective other than sort of being on the field. So it's a great point, but it's also kind of the same Aaron Rodgers argument, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers held a clipboard for 3 years in the NFL, and you could argue he was the most talented guy to ever play quarterback in a very decorated career. So definitely that's a great point. But I just think defensive line is one of those where you're not going to get too much sitting on the sidelines and learning. You got to be in there. It's such a physical position. There's such nuance of what you got to do on the field. So point taken, but I'd still say he's got to go.
Well, I could side with you on one bit because there's a new rule. So he can get the game reps his redshirt year because he could play 4 games and get reps. So it's like that. I think that would be the only positive that he gets those 4 game reps in. But if it's a game like it was against LA, like they played Ole Miss. He's going to play against Ole Miss. So if it's 2020, he won't get those reps.
Again,
I understand.
We are in agreement, but just on that argument, because you think of freshman this year, Carlin Jones, for instance. Carlin Jones probably isn't going to play any games this year, and he's a true freshman. He hasn't sit out at all, so he's missing. So you could say, well, I wouldn't play anyway as a freshman. Like I got to earn my reps anyway, just because I'm number one.
It's just the 2 years is what scares me.
It's a lot though. 2 years is a lot.
Let's just say that's just 24 football games that you're not playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Let's end it on a good note. You brought it up, Ryan. You brought it up earlier. We'll touch on this real quick and we'll get out of here. So mock draft came out today. The number 3 overall person taken was our man Miller Moss, the second quarterback off the board, behind Cam Ward, which was also surprising. But we'll talk about Miller Moss. I don't want to toot the salute to Troy's horn, but beep. We've been saying like either one or two things is going to happen. He's either going to the NFL or he's going to have to come back, and we don't want him to come back because that means he's not having a good year. So far, to date, with the sample size that we have, which is still a small sample size, is that he's showing that he's a professional quarterback. I think I said this on this show, that I think Miller Moss is one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks in this year's draft. Miller Moss and Nessmeyer and Carson Beck. I think with the show of me and you, Ryan, I said those 3 are the most pro-ready quarterbacks. And when I say pro-ready, I mean as far as sitting in the pocket, feeling the hit coming, and being able to throw, take the hit, get up, and keep going. They're not really scramblers. They're not going to move around like in that sense. And they go through the progressions and reads. Athletics is different, but I am okay with this, but I am a little worried about this because they don't know how to win yet. Now they're starting to get a lot of accolades that are showing that they're a winning team, and they haven't been in this situation. The best example I could give when I went there, we knew dudes who were on TV were going to go in the first round. That was just a common thing. The next one's up, he's going first round. The next one's up, he's going first round. We knew that's a common thing. They haven't been in that, and they're still building that culture. So hopefully they could play through this. But as far as Miller Moss being the second quarterback taken, I don't see that far off if the season keeps going the way it goes. Second or third. I don't see first because just based on the teams that needs quarterbacks probably, and it's probably going to be the Giants, and we don't know what Jacksonville is going to do. I always say I want to see him go to a team below pick 15 and an established team so he can succeed. But we see what happened with Caleb. Everybody's mad at Caleb, but Caleb doesn't have an offensive line. This is going to be a whole David Carr situation again. Caleb's getting the blame, but he can't throw the ball. Neither here nor there. But I do like where it is. I do like where he's going. Small sample size. Hopefully he keeps it up so we can see him in New Orleans next year going in, the top 5 picks. Man, what do you got to say about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, it's early. It's a fun part of the season. I think we all can understand that he is being tutored by one of the best minds in all of football at the quarterback position. I think we all see his ability to digest offensive plays. We see his ability to be able to dissect defenses. We see his ability to be able to go through his progressions. And we also see his ability to stand in the pocket and absorb contact while making throws. So those are all things to love. We have so long to go from now until then. So let's see how it all shakes out. But he's absolutely a pro prospect. There's no question about it. We've known it. And now we'll just see how it shakes out in terms of ceiling. I mean, there's 10 more regular season games to go, a possible conference championship game, 4 more possible playoff games. I mean, there's just such a whole body of work to go. But it's fun. It's great to see Miller Moss getting recognition for sticking with the program for so many years, waiting his turn, and now getting an opportunity to really shine and succeed.
You got anything on it, Ryan? You didn't say anything.
No, I haven't yet. But I mean, I think it just shows that, again, it's CBS mock draft. It's September. Draft's not till April, a long ways away. But it shows that it's not just smoke in LA. I think there's actual some fire there nationally. He's getting recognition and everything you guys said. But the fact of, Lincoln Riley's proven it. All his quarterbacks have gotten drafted. All of them have gotten drafted. Even Spencer Rattler, who was only with him for a short time, got drafted and is was battling to potentially beat out Derek Carr in New Orleans. So, and all the rest are starting in the NFL. So I think that alone gives you the pedigree, but then what he's done over his 3 starts over his last 3 games. And I think his arm talent has improved. Not that we had a necessarily game sample size, but just based on covering the team and what we've heard, that's improved. His size has improved. But his pocket presence is great. And that's why he's getting, I think, more recognition than even the highly touted guys like Quinn Ewers, like Shedeur Sanders, because he's doing things that is more pro ready. Like you mentioned, coach, that some of those other coaches, some of those players might have more God-given talent or more athleticism, but they're not doing things that will work necessarily in the pro game. So, I thought it was cool. And I was like, oh man, 2nd quarterback, 3rd overall going. I mean, this guy didn't even have Ewers or Sanders in the first round, but he also had him going above Jackson Dart, above Garrett Nussmeier, above Carson Beck. And like you said, only Cam Ward first, which last thing I'll say, if this goes down like this at all, and Cam Ward does end up being the first quarterback taken, he will look like the smartest young man ever. Because remember last year, he originally was going to declare and was probably going to be a 5th or 6th round pick in this year's draft. Enters the portal, ends up at Miami, and if he goes from 5th or 6th to first quarterback taken, well done, young man.
All right, real quick before we wrap this up, all we need is yes or no. Ryan, yes or no? Number 7 gets retired 24 season.
Let's go positive. Yes, why not?
Jamal?
Love him, but no.
All right, we'll find out. He's going to pop up on the list eventually. We'll see. I say yes. With this clarification. The season has to keep going the way it's going. That's the only way.
Literally the only way it's yes is if he wins the Heisman this year. So that's what we're saying is he's going to win the Heisman.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a season. Yeah, so definitely.
Hey,
Coach, why didn't you just say yes or no?
I did.
You gave a long answer.
He's given, he sets the rules, baby, but he doesn't need to follow them,
I break them sometimes. But bad. Definitely. Hey, I appreciate you guys. We got another one in the books. Bye week. No victory Sunday this week. Let's take the bye week off. We won't do a victory. We don't have anything to celebrate. But we're definitely I think we could do it. I'm gonna check real quick while we're on the line, so everybody knows, and everybody's gonna hate me, but you guys could wait for me. It's not gonna take me long. I just want to see. Hold on. Sorry, guys.
I appreciate you not allowing any dead air, though. Just
I'm sorry. Keep going. Definitely. 12:30 Victory Saturday. You have any plans next Saturday, Ryan? Around 3. Next Saturday.
Well, that's the game. Michigan.
That's the game.
USC.
I was just saying the time around 4:00ish. Do you have any plans?
I was just saying we do it after the game.
Yeah.
No, I'm covering the game, so no, I don't have plans other than the game.
Madman, 4:00ish.
Hey, it's all predicated on whether or not I become a papa.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's when's the actual due date? Is it the 21st?
September 23rd.
23rd.
Oh,
So it could happen.
The 23rd is a thing that the doctors say, it's the window's 20th to the 27th. And so they just pick 23rd because it's, kind of splitting the diff. So
yeah. Well, Mia was 5 weeks early.
She could be born, on the day that USC beats Michigan. Shohei joins the 50-50 club. Could be. I think it's all going to happen on the same day.
Love that. Definitely. And the day that Ryan Dyrich shaves off his beard.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Are we going so beautiful?
Are we going to do that
beautiful.
Are we going to do that on the live, or we're not going to do it?
Yeah, I think Ryan needs to shave live. I think that's where this is going.
We're going to do it live?
Yeah, we'll do it live. I'll just have like a bowl underneath me.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. So we're looking at Victory Saturday. We'll see you guys in 2 Saturdays on Victory Saturday. If you guys want to check out all your local sports, Rams, Chargers, the other team across town, which was the thrill still online. I saw the other day. Futures, Dodgers, and Lakers. And if you want to look at fantasy, check out the Decide guys. I'm going to say it wrong. Amar. Help me out.
Amar.
I'm going to get it right. Amar and our man Tad Decide. The Decide guy fantasy. Go to lafbnetwork.com. Get all your local stories, up-to-date highlights, and go check out the merch store. Go get you some merch. Ryan has merch on right now. Don't hate us because you ain't us. And that's the slogan. That's the way it is. Jamal, Ryan has been good. Guys, this has been the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast. You guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.